Welcome to Virtual City Hall School. I'm really excited today to have two special guests, Mayor Don Iveson
Hi there.
and also student reporter Fiona.
Hi.
At City Hall School, we learn that the mayor and the councilor's job is to listen, to learn, and decide. And the decisions that they make give us a really great quality of life here in Edmonton. The mayor says he's trying to build a city that you, students, will want to stay in and live in as you grow up. So I'll give you a little bit of information that I've heard about Mayor Iveson. I know that he and his family have 4 goldfish. He likes to walk in the river valley. His favorite food is waffles with peanut butter. And his first job was cutting the grass at the lake. So Fiona's going to take over now and ask him a few more questions and find out more about Mayor Iveson. Go ahead, Fiona.
The first question is, what is the most rewarding part of your job?
I'm doing it right now, which is talking to the people who I work for, and particularly young Edmontonians. But I have, if you can believe it, 972,000 bosses. But I think some of the most important bosses and some of the voices that don't always get heard are leaders of the next generation. So I love going out into the community and meeting and listening with different people to hear their different perspectives and what they want from the city. But what I love most is talking to leaders from our youth council, our next gen groups, student organizations, other people who are really looking ahead over the course of their life and trying to decide if Edmonton's going to be the place where they want to live. And their ideas and their aspiration and their hope for our city and their serious and urgent pressure to make things right for them is really inspiring and really rewarding. And so I'm really grateful for any opportunity to be a part of City Hall School programming, which Ms. Hutt does an awesome job leading. And it's really nice to meet you, Fiona. Thanks for the question.
Great answer. The second question is, what is the biggest challenge?
Well, the biggest challenge is that if you have 972,000 bosses, you can't possibly keep all of them happy. And my inclination is to try to make people happy. I mean, I think that's a reasonable thing to do. But it turns out in leadership, and it's a really hard lesson to learn, especially if you care what people think and want everyone to be thriving, is that you can't please everybody. And in fact, there are legitimate disagreements and disconnects and different worldviews, and that actually the really interesting thing is when you take a little bit from this worldview and a little bit from this worldview and bring them together, you may not get something that satisfies everybody, but you might actually get something that works better than if it's just one type of thinking that makes all the decisions over here. And that's one of the things that I really like about a city council is that functioning at its best, everybody is respectfully bringing their perspectives to the table. And then weaving them together into something that's going to be stronger and serve people better. And even you may find yourself supporting something that wasn't what you believed going in, but that you were convinced by the debate and the discussion and the democratic discourse will actually be the right compromise. And sometimes it's not a compromise. Sometimes it's a composite of ideas that will work best. The challenge is, especially if you come up with something like that, sometimes even your own supporters will say, well, I don't know what he was thinking, but they weren't in the room. They didn't get to see how it all weaved together. So sometimes even disappointing the people who would normally be behind you is tough. But even just having people disagree, especially if they get disrespectful, which happens unfortunately more and more on social media, those are some of the challenging parts of the job. But again, the flip side of it is you listen to more perspectives, you put ideas together, and you get better results.
The third question is, what did you want to be when you were my age?
So, and how old are you, Fiona?
I'm 12.
You're 12? I think by the time I was 12, I was no longer wanting to be an astronaut. I think I was starting to want to be an architect, actually. I was still playing a lot of Lego and a fair bit of SimCity. And I thought that designing and building buildings would be pretty cool. So, but I don't have a strong memory of what I wanted to do when I was 12. I think when I was 12, I was just like, I just want to be 12 right now. Leave me alone. What do you want to be?
I want to be a nurse really badly.
Oh man, that's fantastic. And you must know how important a role nurses are playing. I mean, they always do. I mean, caregivers are sometimes overlooked in all forms in our community. But nurses are, I think, finally getting the respect they deserve. So good for you.
Thanks. And the fourth question is, what are 3 words that you would describe a great leader?
Um, a listener, first of all, like I was describing earlier. You need to take in a lot of perspective, um, and then you need to have courage to get past those disagreements and that resistance. Uh, so you have to be able to take in information as a listener. You have to have the courage to know that you're going to disappoint people and know that there's going to be friction if you're doing something hard. And then you have to be clear. Because if people don't understand what's happening, where we're going, and why, if there isn't a clear and compelling case for what's happening, then even if it's a great idea, you might lose the people who are following you. So I think you got to listen first. You have to have courage, and then you need to be really, really clear once you've made up your mind.
Okay. The the other question
Write
is,
that down.
during this time of isolation, what is something that brings you joy?
Well, honestly, working from home has its pros and its cons. I'm wearing sweatpants right now, so I'm super cozy, which is cool. Um, and my commute was very short. I just made myself a cup of coffee, and so there are some advantages to this time of disruption. But I think the biggest one is that I've had more time with my family, more meals at home in the last 6 weeks than probably in the last year or two, because my normal schedule as mayor is very, very busy and has me out of the house a lot. So I've got to spend a lot more time with my family, and especially with my kids. And I'm sort of their gym teacher right now, and I'm sort of their science teacher right now, and I'm sort of their social studies teacher right now. And it's actually been a lot of fun in that way. But we've also done a couple of other things. My wife Sarah is actually pretty extraordinary hip hop dancer, and so she tonight we're doing another TikTok to get ready for a project she's involved in with the United Way, which is called Denton's Make Your Mark, and there's going to be a big event. They're building up each Wednesday. They're doing events, but on May 13th there'll be another big event, and we'll see how it goes. There may be some more hip hop dancing. So my skills pale in comparison. Like Sarah is definitely the beast in our house when it comes to popping and locking. So we're trying new things, which has been fun.
Okay, great answer. There are so many caring citizens in our city. Tell us some of the #YetCare examples you've seen in our city.
Well, one that stuck out for me right at the very beginning was my good friend Amarjeet Sohi, who was a city councilor for 9 years. When the orders started to come down to basically stay at home, he sent out a tweet and he just said, "Hey, I'm healthy and I'm available. Anyone need anything picked up, just send me a note." And so he was driving around picking up groceries for strangers who reached out to him. Now, we haven't done that for strangers, but a good friend of ours moved to New Zealand a little while ago for a job. And so his mom is here, and she's a little bit older, and so for her safety, Sarah offered to go get her groceries. So we brought her groceries a couple of times. So just all of those little examples of people particularly looking after our elders or people who have other health conditions that make them more susceptible to this disease. Just the generosity of that has been really heartwarming, actually. And there's so many examples of that. And then I think businesses have done just amazing things the way they've adapted, and then the way many of them are also giving back. to the food bank or others. So some of the businesses that are doing really well, they're actually trying to help out the community as well. So there's individual and business and lots of faith groups that are doing extraordinary things to give back very generously as well. And mostly people are being positive and adaptive and resilient and caring and very community minded right now. So the ultimate gig cares expression is that people are washing their hands, they're staying home. When they go out, they're socially distancing. Like Edmontonians are being so conscientious and community minded. It's one of the contributing factors for why we have more or less flattened the curve here better than any other major Canadian city. But that's because Edmontonians are awesome.
And the last question is, what do you hope we all learn or take away from this experience? And what advice do you have for children like me?
Well, that's a great question because I was talking about this a little bit with Dexter and Alice, who are almost 8 and almost 11. They would remind me, and this is kind of the biggest thing that's happened in their lives so far in terms of a global event, and it will be something that certainly defines your childhood, and other significant things will happen in all of our lives. But this is the first mass shared experience of your generation, and it's one of the most significant even for my generation. There have been other big economic events and 9/11 and other things that are sort of milestones, but this is just a whole other level even than those things, because it's truly a global phenomenon. And so this moment will define your sense of community and your sense of humanity and your sense maybe of anxiety and uncertainty too. So I think how we talk about these things will be really, really important and will shape your generation's outlook on the world, your leadership, your passions. And here you are wanting to give back and become a nurse and become a caregiver and become a frontline healthcare worker. And that's just, that gets me right here, right? So that's great. Like the kids are going to be fine. You guys are going to be great because I think this will positively define things. I think it has refocused so much human thought capacity on what we need to do to thrive together and how my health depends on your health. And that was always the case, I think. We just sometimes forget that as humans. We get caught up in our own stuff and we get competitive with each other or competitive with other cities or competitive with other countries, or sometimes people get divided even worse along faith or along some notion of race or some other divisive idea. But we can all get COVID. We're all in this together. And we're all in the economy together, and we're all in society together, and we're all in this environment together. And I think this virus is forcing us to remember that we're all connected. And that will define our time going forward. And I think that will be undeniable knowledge for your generation. And we've seen extraordinary youth leadership recently. And Greta Thunberg is another example of a young person standing up and saying, hold on, you guys got to think about this differently. And so I think there's tremendous leadership opportunities for people like you going forward. But thank you for doing this with me. It's great leadership, and it's been awesome to talk to you.
Well, thank you both for your interview. That was a great interview. And Mayor Iveson has always been a great supporter of City Hall School, making time for students, not just at City Hall School, but youth in our city, encouraging them to be leaders and using their voices, valuing their contributions. So really doing an amazing job. And as he mentioned, his partner, Sarah Chan, is also someone who's trying to help build an uplifting city through her work at United Way. So I too would like to invite you on May 13th at 11 o'clock to join Denton's Make Your Mark and have a chance to see 19 different school groups throughout the community, people just like you who are trying to make a difference, helping ending poverty, helping educating others. So I like to end each episode with a challenge. So my challenge to you students is to think of a way of how you could make a difference in our city. Maybe you by yourself, maybe you with your family or your school group or community, to help make a city that's more uplifting. How can you make others feel welcome, feel connected, feel cared for? That's my challenge to you. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.